hello everyone and welcome. My name is Kelly Jessup. I'm the Assistant Director for Digital Learning here at Yale School of Management, Executive Education. Hope everyone is doing well today, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us for this introduction to Yale's CPWA prep course, Wealth Management Theory and Practice. This is one of two online financial certification programs we offer. It's modeled after our successful CIMA online program, which is Investment Management Theory and Practice. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, was instrumental in creating both programs, so he knows them inside and out. We ask you to please engage with us during this webinar and don't hesitate to ask questions. This is your time. Jim is very knowledgeable, and this is a great opportunity to pick his brain. We may hold questions, but we will do our best to answer all of them. To ask questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and please use the chat function for any technical issues. So now I'd like to introduce our program director. Jim Dobbs is CPWA certified. He's also CFP and CIMA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring from it to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for the last 20 years, helping to build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments in Wealth Institute. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. Jim directed and taught in the classroom version of this CPWA course for many years and has now partnered with us to bring his expertise and enthusiasm to Yale and in turn to you. You'll see he's a passionate guy and he's committed to success. He measures his success based on yours. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. Can you see and hear me okay?
Sure can.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Let's spend about an hour, give or take. We'll see how many questions you've got. Every question's fair game. Really just meant to be here for you. Answer questions about CPWA, the certification. What does it take? What are the requirements? What's a little bit about the content? Who's it for? Who maybe is it not for? Those kind of things. Then we'll spend really about 2/3 of our time going through the process if you choose Yale as you work towards CPWA certification. But again, you just keep those questions coming in. We'll stop several times along the way to answer those, and then we'll have a free-for-all at the end. But I would encourage you, like Kelly did, just to go ahead and get those in to the queue just as soon as you think of them. All right. Oops, let's go back here. First point of distinction, at Yale, we offer a registered education course that has been approved by IWI. With certain certifications, you have to take registered courses, not all of them, but CIMA, CPWA, there are a few others out there where you have to take a registered course. So we have that at Yale. We also offer test prep. We combine those two together in one program. I'll show you how that works in a minute. But we are not your certifying body. We don't create the exam. We don't give the exam. We don't grade the exam. We don't manage your certification going forward. So like now that I have my CPWA certification, and CIMA is the other one I have through IWI, Investments in Wealth Institute, they're the certifying body. So I submit my CE to them every 2 years. I pay them their dues that they require for me to keep using the marks every 2 years. And that's how that process works. So we're on the front end, if you will. We're going to handle the education, and we're going to handle the test prep, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. If you're not familiar with IWI, go to their website, investmentsinwealth.org. You can still type in their old acronym, imca.org, and get there as well. But you'll see that it's grown. It used to be kind of like smallish and elite, if you will. But now, I mean, there's like 17. I think that's a little outdated. I mean, they're probably getting close to 20,000 members. I think it's over 12,000 certificates now as well, and a lot of people in the process. The thing I liked about IWI 15 years ago, actually it's probably more like 20, that drew me into that organization is the depth and the quality of their content, whether it's I think they have either 2 or 3 journals. They do these conferences every year, and they have a lot of great online content. They have the certifications, and they just were always a step ahead of most of the other certifications. That CPWA and SEMA are two of the only, there are only about a handful of accredited financial certifications. And that's one of the reasons that I believe so strongly in these. I have multiple designations. I only show the 3 that are accredited for what are probably obvious reasons. I'm not saying you shouldn't go do other designations like I have as well. If the content's interesting, you just want to do that, but it probably won't mean as much to your clients or prospects or even the industry. So go check them out if you need to get more familiar with your certifying body, IWI. All right, let's talk a little bit about the certifications. I would expect most of you are in the right place. You know, you're looking at Certified Private Wealth Advisor, CPWA, because you work with high net worth clients. This is really not an alternative to CFP. I was Director of Education at CFP Board and IWI as a practitioner in residence at different points in my career when I was managing my RIA. And they brought me into IWI again about 17, 18 years ago to create CPWA because a lot of us on one of their committees were CFPs, but we weren't really specifically trained, especially in technical areas, think tax, retirement planning, all the different types of trusts we use with our high net worth clients. CFP wasn't really designed to prepare us for that. Oh, there are a few, you know, really high end, like master's level CFP programs where you take 3 classes in investments and 3 in estate planning and that kind of thing. And they're going to cover a lot of this, but 99% of them don't. And they weren't really meant to. So that's kind of how CPWA came about. If you are new to the business and you're considering CFP or CPWA, I probably lean towards CFP first. I'll make you the first of a few offers today. I think it's really important when you're talking about certifications that take this much time and effort and the opportunity cost to make sure you're doing the right thing at the right point in your career. So if after this, you're like, yeah, I'm still not sure which one to do first, or like, should I do this one or that one? Just reach out to me. You'll see my contact information a few times along the way. Happy to have a short phone call with you. Just try to help you figure it out because, you know, you just don't want to start down a road that's going to take you 100, 200 hours and then 20 hours in go, oh, shoot. So I want to help you if I can in that regard. But CFP is broader, covers a lot more material. That's why it takes 18 months for most people. That's more or less an average according to CFP board. There are certainly programs that take longer and fast track programs that are designed to only take about a year. For CPWA, it's only about 6 months for our candidates at Yale. That's according to survey results from our own candidates. And I'll talk more about the timing and the hours of study expectation in a minute. But I want to mention 2 things, because when you see CFP 18 months, CPWA 6 months, you might start thinking, oh, well, I guess CPWA is just a lot easier. No, I would argue strongly that question for question, the CPWA exam is definitely harder than the CFP exam. It's just the CFP exam covers a whole lot more material, and you know they can't test you on all of it, but you got to learn it all anyway because you don't know the rotation of the questions, right? So it's more challenging in that way, but the difficulty of the question and what they ask you to do to get to the right answer on the CPWA is more cognitively challenging, let's say. I'm not saying CFP doesn't have some of those questions on their exam. They do, but there's a lot less memory and recall on the CPWA exam versus the CFP exam. So it's a more challenging exam. And again, the obvious is there's just a lot less material in CPWA to learn. There's still a lot, but there's not nearly as much as CFP. Just within CPWA, we're going to take a super deep dive, especially technical, tax, estate planning, for those of you working with your high net worth clients. So it could be biting off more than you can chew if you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the business and haven't done your CFP or CHFC. It's not quite as rigorous as CFP, but it covers a lot of the same bases. And so maybe one of those would be better first. But if you've been in the business at least a few years and you really already mostly exclusively work with high net worths, Or if you're at a family office or in a trust company, those kind of things, then maybe CPWA would be fine and you don't need CFP as your foundation. CIMA is the sister program at Yale that we do. Kelly and I work on together, online program also, and that's just investments, certified investment management analyst. So like CFA, it's just all investments all the time. CFA is the deepest dive, the most technical. If you want to be a institutional mutual fund or ETF manager, yeah, CFA is the way to go. Or if you want to be an industry or securities analyst on your way to portfolio manager, CFA is the way to go. But for the rest of us mere mortals, client-facing financial advisors, financial planners, investment advisors, consultants, CIMA is the way to go on the deeper dive on investment, not nearly as rigorous as CFA. Still very challenging, and you can see that in the pass rates on IWI's website, but just not as grueling as CFA. Okay, so hopefully that's a decent backdrop so that you know that, yep, I'm in the right place, or yeah, maybe I'm not. I'll actually take a quick peek at the number of participants and see if some of you drop in the next 60 seconds. But anyway, if you got any questions on that, just general questions, throw those into the queue right now. If it's more specific to your situation, you just grab my email when you see it come up here in another minute or two. Shoot me an email. I'd be happy to have a talk with you. I do have a little bit of time tomorrow and Friday also, if you want to have a personal conversation with me. Okay, let's talk about the prereqs. There are some. This is a certification. This is not like, okay, sign up, put my credit card number in, and like 2 minutes later, I'm off and going. This is a full-blown certification. It's accredited by ANSI, one of the 2 major professional certification accrediting bodies in the United States. So there is a process. You do have to submit your application to IWI. They're going to run a background check, and they're going to check to make sure that you have a bachelor's degree from an accredited university. The major doesn't matter. The degree itself doesn't matter. I mean, bachelor's degree, not associates. If you don't have one, there is an out. If you hold one of these certifications, well, CPA is actually not a certification, it's a license, but if you hold one of these then designations, then you don't have to have a bachelor's degree. Again, background check's probably just going to be your U4, and then they're going to match that up with what you said on your application. That's kind of the process there. And then 5 years of experience in financial services. Doesn't have to be wealth management or financial planning for high net worth clients. Just has to be 5 years in financial services. It's pretty broad in my experience in terms of how they qualify people or not. That being said, I think maybe just as importantly, some of you probably don't have 5 years yet. They allow you to start the process before you hit 5. It's just one of the requirements. I've got prereqs here, prereqs to be able to use the marks, but we have a handful of people in our program, which is a small percentage because we have anywhere between 500 and 600 people in the program at any given time who don't have 5 years yet, but they're like, hey, they'll let me. So I'm going to go ahead and do the education, study for and pass the test. And then like the last thing I'll have to do is just wait till I hit my 5 years and then I can use the marks. And that's okay. But again, if you're like not sure, like, is this just too much for you to go for this early in your career? Yeah, reach out to me. I'll be happy to have a talk with you. All right, this is really, really important. Here's my next offer. You see my emails down there at the bottom. Content's really important. I think you're in the right place in terms of legitimate, rigorous certifying bodies. I mean, IWI and they're not perfect, nobody is, but they do as good a job as anybody else in maintaining the legitimacy, the defensibility of the exam, the credibility of this certification in the field by going all the way to accreditation, which again, very few do. That being said, the content's really important too, and you need to make sure that the content that you see in what they call the core body of knowledge or the CBOC, the detailed content outline, those are all kind of synonymous. You need to make sure that that is what you're working on, or those are areas, topics, concepts, applications that could really help you serve your clients better or make you look better in your field, in your career path, bring in new business because of new skills and confidence. So look through The long version of this, shoot me an email if you don't have it. There's like a 4 or 5 page color coded version of this with the line by line items. There's actually over 500 topics on it. And we go through all of those topics, some more, some less, some are test based, some are practice based. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But my point is, in going through, spend 10, 15 minutes going through that longer document, just asking yourself, is studying this going to help me in my practice like right now? Is studying this going to help me? Is studying this going to help me? After a while, your intuition ought to kick in and say, yeah, I can stop asking that question because most of this is right on target. Or, yeah, I don't know, maybe half of it. If you're in that camp, this is probably not what I would recommend for you at this time. This is going to take a lot of energy, going to take a lot out of you. It's worth it. If you're the right person for this certification right now. You can see the big picture topics.
Jim,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I think the wrong slide is up. This is the 5 reasons. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's pretty interesting. Can you see that one?
Yeah, that's the core topics.
Okay, great,
Yeah,
great. Okay, so thank you for jumping in on that. So there you see my emails down there. And again, you send me an email. I'll be happy to send you the longer version of this honeycomb, which has got all of the topics on it. But suffice to say, here are the major domains, as they call them. You might think of them as sections. We're going to do ethics. We're going to do applied behavioral finance. We're going to do family dynamics, obviously very challenging in terms of you're maybe a CFP and working with clients that are worth hundreds of thousands or low millions. Now you're CPWA designee and you're working with clients that are worth 5, 10, 15, 20, $50 million. And they're going to be passing 12 or $20 million down to 3 kids or 6 grandkids. I mean, family dynamics is really, it's not so technical in the financial sense, of course. It's a bit more psychological, but wow, if you've been in the business for a while, like I was for 27 years, that's where a lot of the really big challenges come in, and you really need to get up that ramp so that you can help your clients when challenges most certainly will arise. Then we'll do just kind of traditional financial planning, but for your high net worth clients: tax, investments, portfolio management, risk, asset management, asset protection, that kind of thing. Then we'll get into some specific focus. So your client's worth $30 million, but 20 or 25 million of that net worth is wrapped up in their closely held business that they're going to sell in 3 or 5 or 7 years. Okay, interesting challenges, certainly some opportunities there. We're going to go through the tax, the legal, the asset protection ramifications, and talk about how you can help those clients as they work with CPAs and often attorneys as well. You and I wouldn't necessarily be pulling the shots on a lot of those decisions or pulling the trigger on those shots, but we do need to be in those conversations for a number of reasons. And personally, I learned that I could add a lot of value in going to those meetings with the CPAs and the clients or the attorneys, and then coming back to my office or going to my clients and having a debriefing because the attorney was just using too much jargon or the accountant was, and they were just going so fast, and client really needs to just digest it a little slower and a little more thoroughly even, and I could help with that. So that's the level we're going to try to help you get to. Executives, your clients were $10 million, but $7.5 million is wrapped up in company stock options or the concentrated stock that comes as a result of exercising those options. Certainly some tax ramifications, and there are some strategic decisions to be made on the investment side there as well. And then retirement, I did want to mention retirement. I mean, it's in their honeycomb, so I want to mention it, but I think the primary difference between retirement in CPWA land, if you will, versus CFP land is most of retirement content was related to accumulation on the CFP side. Most of it is clearly on the decumulation side for CPWA. And the thought is, and it's kind of logical, you're probably already thinking, yeah, I know what you're about to say, is your client's worth 10, 20, $30 million. It's not about accumulating, get to retirement. They're already there financially. It's just how do you unwind that? How do you get assets out of retirement plans. I mean, you're going to be forced with RMDs, but how do you do that in a tax efficient way? Then how do you spread that money out to the heirs if they're not going to spend it down themselves? And those are the kind of things that we want to talk about in CPWA land. And then finally, legacy planning. Yeah, huge in this curriculum. Charitable giving, charitable planning, passing the money along to kids and grandkids and others while alive, inter vivos, or upon death through an estate plan. So the pretty heavy lifting there. Another difference between CFP, for example, or CHFC and CPWA. In those programs, you're going to learn about trusts, but if you only have one course in that program, you're going to learn the basics of trust. But in CPWA land, we're going to go through like 23 different types of trusts. What are the tax ramifications? What's the structure, the constraints, the disadvantages, the pushback you may get from clients? How do they actually work in implementation? That kind of thing. So it's just a different level in terms of estate planning, if you will. Okay, let's talk about this one just real briefly. And I'm going to go backwards. IWI uses this. I think it's a sales tool, I guess, for them. But I do like the value proposition, if you will, from going through a program like this. Clearly, you're going to be able to differentiate yourself from most others in the field. This is tax heavy, not like you're going to be a tax specialist or CPA level tax professional, but you're going to study a lot of tax in this program. I mean, it's imperative if you're working with decamillionaire clients and up. It's just going to come up all the time anyway. So you got to get strong. And, quite honestly, a lot of your peers, a lot of my peers, they didn't want to put in the time to learn that stuff. Like they're like, one common excuse, my firm doesn't let me talk about it anyway. Well, that's poppycock, because your $15 million client doesn't care what your firm says. Taxes are an issue, and you've got to be involved in that conversation, even if you never make a single recommendation, which many of you won't. You still got to know it. So differentiation, I think, is a big one. Content, highly applicable. I think that's one of the most exciting things about this program. Expert instruction. I'll show you the faculty in a minute. I'm just happy to be on it. I'm just a throw in, if you will. Confidence with clients is a big one. And that's what I love to hear about from you guys later, especially like at conferences. If I see you live at a live event somewhere throughout the year, it's like your confidence goes up, not only with your clients and prospects, but when you're sitting in a room with a high-powered, well-known attorney or CPA, and you're able to hang in there, strategy for strategy, every strategy they threw out, like, what that is. That's really, really important. And then higher compensation. Yeah, I mean, CPWAs, according to IT Group and a couple other third-party surveys, CPWAs make more than CFPs that don't have their CPWA, and CFPs make more than financial planners who don't have their CFP. We could argue causation, and maybe that is a good argument to have. That being said, some of you probably still need to convince your superior, your boss, that this is worth doing. So go to their website. They've got some good third-party research. They've got some nice self-serving research too, but they've got third-party research to show some of the benefits in case somebody in your firm needs to be convinced that this is worth letting you spend some time on. All right, let's talk real briefly about the goals of the program and what Kelly and I and the crew are trying to do or help you with, and then we'll see if we've got any early questions. Yeah, that 500 topic list, and then it's over 1,000 when you add some subtopics to it that they could test you on. We're going to cover all of it. We're either going to cover it at the course level or the test prep. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's just one for some practical reasons, but we're going to cover all of that. The middle one is, I think, the most impactful one. Richard Joyner, who really, this was, CPWA was his idea 25 years ago, and they just brought me in to formalize it and create a committee of practitioners to build it out a long time ago. His original idea was make this to where participants, graduates of the program, those who get the designation, they're able to turn the corner in their practice like immediately. So I really don't want to focus so much on the theory and the tax law. We got to go through that stuff, but it's about implementation. How can you use this with your clients? That's the most important in my mind. It's the hardest to measure of these three, and we have a whole lot of other objectives that we try to measure as well. And then last but not least, because I was where you are, in practice, working towards my certifications, all that good stuff, and just being overloaded sometimes with commitments. And eventually, as you get closer and closer to your certification exam date, I get it, it's going to be all about the exam at some point. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start big, wide, if you will, focusing as much on practical as we do theory and law. And then we're going to work our way into test prep eventually. And then down the stretch, if you will, it's all about the exam. What's on the exam, what's probably not going to be on the exam, how might this type of question trip you up? Where are the fact patterns? You know, what could you be looking at in that regard? So that's what we're going to focus on as you get near the end of your journey. Okay, I'll stop there though, and let's see if we've got any early questions.
Doesn't look like we have any at the moment.
All right, and only one has dropped off, so maybe everybody is all good and like you're in the right place. That's good to know. All right, so with an online program, and Kelly's right. I for the first 10 years, I built the program at the University of Chicago. I was program director and one of the instructors in that one, just like I am here for Yale. But the idea was once we got 10 years in, it was like the board kept saying, we need an online program. We need an online program, and it needs to include test prep with it. So it's like, okay, I'll accept that challenge and move out and create this program. I knew the dean, Ted Snyder at the time at Yale. He's still on faculty. He's just not the dean anymore. And Toby Moskowitz, I had done a lot of work with him in different programs through the years. So we kind of teamed up to bring this to you through Yale. Completely online, no need to travel. For some of you, you actually like getting out of the office, but I realize that probably most of you are like, I'd love to, but I'm just swamped here. I need to be able to just be in my office or be at home for these next 6, 12 months, whatever. So yeah, not an issue there. It's meant to be convenient. Everything's on demand. We used to do live programs. Don't do those much anymore because not many people show up. They want the convenience of this all being on demand. So you're really going to just study whenever and wherever you want. Everything's downloadable. You just can't share it with anybody. You purchased it. It's for you. You are the participant, not somebody else. So you can save it, put it on your hard drive, just don't share it. And we're fine with that. So like you could download the videos, for example, as MP4s. This is how they come. You convert them to MP3s and just listen if you wanted to on the train or, in your car or on the plane or whatever. So it's really meant for maximum flexibility for you. That way you can study whenever you want, and you really don't even have to be online for most of this. There's a couple of caveats I'll show you here in just a minute. All right, and kind of the bottom line, if you want to think of it, is I'll just skip right to it, is you can get through as fast or slow as you want to. This is meant to be self-paced. We have people get through in a matter of weeks. Now, granted, we have many hundreds of candidates every year. So yeah, the law of averages would say we're going to have some exceptional people, and they've already got CFP, they got 10 years in the business, and they're really, really sharp on tax or whatever, and they can just power through. But I didn't want those people to freak out, the people that are like, okay, Jim, I'm not a newbie, but I'm only 8 years in the business. I did finish my CFP, but that was years ago. And it's going to take me a whole lot longer than weeks to get through this. It may take me more than 6 months, which you said is kind of normal or average. And so that's fine. You work through if you need to be more meticulous or a little bit slower. Maybe you have learning challenges or learning disabilities. We certainly have participants, candidates who are in that boat. That's fine. You've got a whole year in our program. I'll talk about the timing in a minute. But as you can see here, the expected study time, and when I say study time, I mean like you log in to our program for the first day, start reading through the syllabus, watching the orientation videos, to the time that you take and pass the certification exam, which we'll talk about how to schedule that in a minute. 100 to 200 hours is pretty normal. It's easy to say from the surveys we've received from you guys after you've gone through and done everything that the vast majority fit inside that 100 to 200 hours. Some are certainly less than that, but others could take many, 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 many hundred of hours, like 500 or more hours, if any one of those other things, like just can't focus, get distracted, not real good at study habits or test taking skills, newer in the business, learning disabilities, dyslexia, those kind of things, it certainly could drag out and be much more than your 500 hours. But it's just the variables that are unique to you that will determine how fast or slow it's going to take for you. All right, some nuts and bolts. $72.95 is the course fee. That includes your candidacy application and the background checks and all that. One attempt at the certification exam. The great majority of our candidates at Yale pass this exam on the first attempt. That does not mean it's an easy exam. It's going to take a lot of work to get you where you need to be to pass it. That's what we're here for. But suffice to say, $72.95 is a decent amount. And I think your energy and the opportunity cost is just as important as the $72.95. So I'm really glad you're here, just going through the nuts and bolts here and getting a handle on the process, because it's a big decision. And we want you to join us at Yale if it's right. But if it's not, we understand. Oh, by the way, IWI sometimes does have discounts or scholarships, that kind of thing. We don't at Yale. For a program like this, it's non-academic credit. It's not part of a degree program, of course. It's part of executive education. But IWI does sometimes, so you might check that out in case you might be able to get that price down a little bit. But we don't have anything to do with that. Ongoing registration. So this is asynchronous. You're going to start whenever you're ready, and you go through the program like I mentioned a little bit before. You have 1 year. Your $72.95 buys you access to our platform. That we use Canvas, like so many other programs out there. It's the most popular, most widely subscribed LMS or learning management system. You have 365 days, but you start whenever you're ready. And the guidance I'll give you there is when you look at your practice, and what your schedule looks like for the next 3, 6, 12 months, like I did for all those years, there are certain things that you just know are going to happen, like certain time of the year you do your client reviews, or a certain time of the year you might do planning sessions. Or if you're in a tax practice or a tax heavy practice, first quarter is probably going to be a killer for you because you're doing the tax thing. Even though I know, we've also got an October deadline and corporations are March, blah, blah, blah. But that first 3 months or so, 4 months are going to be killer. So you don't really probably want to start it if you're in a practice like that. But if you look at the next 3 to 6 months of your schedule and go, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but that doesn't look any worse than normal, then that's probably a good sign. Like, okay, then maybe now would be a good time for you to go for it. But in that situation where you're like, man, these next 3 months are going to be tough for me, don't start. Just wait. We'll be here. Just wait till the timing's right for you. Because again, you got 365 days, as you've already read probably in that last bullet point. If you run out of time, your practice gets busy, something happens in personal life, all that stuff, then for $22.50, you can buy access for another year. That's your option. But you really don't even need to do that if money's not an issue. Now, we have people do that every year because they work at a big firm and the firm is paying for it no matter how much it costs. So they're like, that $22.50 is not coming from me. So they go ahead and do that. But if money is tight or you don't have that in the budget, not a big deal. Just pass the test I'm going to show you in just a minute so that you've passed the course. Then when the test prep opens up for you, download everything. Now, it'll take you a couple hours to download everything, but just download everything before your time runs out, and then you just study off your own hard drive. Again, as long as you don't share it with anybody, we're totally fine with you doing that. So that 1 year time constraint really shouldn't be an issue for you. And if it only takes you 100 to 200 hours, you're studying 8 to 10 hours a week, shouldn't take you more than 6 months anyway, even if you have some interruption along the way. So it really shouldn't be an issue for you, that 365. All right, I'm going to take a little breath here, let you stare at this page, and let's see if we've got any questions. Don't be shy. Everything's fair game.
Doesn't look like we have any right now.
Okay, we'll keep forging ahead. All right, so pass rates. There's only certain things we can say, like ours is really good, but we can't go into super specifics on that. You can go to the IWI website, go under CPWA and the certification exam subpage, and you can see more information there. You'll see that they're actually pretty strong relative to other CFP. They're higher than that across the board. SEMA, they're certainly higher than CFA, FRM, KIA, they're higher than all of those. Now, in all fairness, and I'm so proud, Kelly and I are very proud of our children, as it were, the candidates at Yale, the pass rates, I mean, for the most part, you guys do what we ask you to do, and you put in the time and you follow our guidance and you make it. And since we have the program that brings in the most people, yeah, we're going to be driving that pass rate. So very, very proud of our students, our participants, the candidates that choose us, because that does have something to do with that pass rate that you're going to see on their website. All right, so let's actually talk about the course, then leading to the test prep. It's all in one program or platform, as I mentioned. Just think of it as like part 1 and part 2. Part 1's the course. So instead of going to New Haven and we're all in a classroom and I'm teaching or Toby's teaching or John Nersessi and Richard Joyner, Steve Siegel, whoever, you're going to just be watching it at home or in your office or wherever. And it's, again, all on demand. So you just go as fast or slow as you want. Watch things over and over if you need to. It's all video based. It's not all video based. It's primarily video based. There are about 2,400 pages, 2,400 pages that I've custom selected from a number of texts to go through those 500 topics and the 11 domains that IWI has created for the certification. But those are really secondary. That's a library. It's not like the old days, if you're old like me, and most of you probably aren't, and you went to college and they said, well, read these 3 chapters and I'll see you Thursday. Yeah, most learning doesn't work that way anymore. Some people like to read crazy like that, but most don't. So we're going to key on the video lessons. Should take you about 30 to 40 hours to get through the 11 sections. And we're just explaining things that we think are the most important. Maybe the most complicated, they need a little extra explanation. That would certainly help you in the test prep area and would help you even if you go to the reading sections. So that's how we put those 30 hours of lecture roughly together. Then take about that amount of time, 30 to maybe 40 hours max, to go through those videos, take notes. Don't worry about the exam yet, as you'll see in the orientation. Don't worry about the exam. Just get through, learn as much as you can, build a really solid foundation in your first 30 to 40 hours, pass some tests after each one of those 11 sections. They're not proctored, they're online. You can take them as many times as you need to. Most of them are about 12 to 30 questions long, so they're intermediate level. The exam is intermediate to advanced. So we're not going to rough you up yet. Just want to make sure you're paying attention. It's our way to assess you so that we can give you a certificate of completion from Yale School of Management that you passed this not for academic credit course. We will send that to you as soon as you pass your 11th test. It says, Jim, congratulations. Your certificate's on the way, and we're telling IWI that you've passed. So they will send you what to do next. Like, this is how you're going to schedule your certification exam. Now, you're not ready to take it because you need to jump into the test prep, which you hadn't seen to that point. This only populates for you once you've passed your 11th test. And now the rest of the time you're going to spend here, which is, you've already deduced, going to be most of the time you spend with us. Because if it's 100 to 200 hours for most people, it's only 30 to 40 at the course level. Yeah, most of your time is actually going to be here. And at this level, it's like, okay, here's a bunch of videos. I think it's 6 or 7 hours of me, unfortunately, but fortunately. The fortunate part is I'm just going through the 500 topics with summary slides. We've got about close to 1,000 now summary slides across those sections. And I'm just going through in the last year, this has been heavily tested. These next 3 slides, you really need to understand this. Go through the examples I've got, maybe some practice questions in there. And then if you don't understand this, you don't feel good about it, go back into the lecture videos or go into your readings library and get stronger, fill in those knowledge gaps, because this is probably going to show up in one way or another on your test. See these next 2 or 3 slides? They almost never test on this. In fact, I can't even remember the last time somebody ever told me they were tested on it. So go ahead and read through it, but I don't want you to spend a lot of time there. We're just going to check the box on those topics. And then there's the squishy middle, right? The ones that are tested regularly, but they're not all the time, but they're definitely not next to never. They're in the middle, and maybe it's a 50-50 or something that you get one of the question on one of these topics or applications. So that's what those videos, they're really not the core of the learning. The core of the learning happens in those 30 hours of lecture video at the course level, but now it's just about the test. And you're going to go through all of those summary slides, taking your notes, what's important, what's not, according to Jim and past students. And then what do I need to be, get stronger at versus I can just skim over this. And then we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of practice questions. It's around 1,000 when you add them all up. We have one mock exam. By the time you get through this whole thing, if you've done all of my practice questions, which you should do every single one of them, you've done many mock exams worth of questions. But I did want to give you 1 4-hour, timed exam like you're going to be when it's go time. So you could just sit there and try to force yourself to focus for 4 hours. We could break those up and make mini mock exams. That doesn't make sense. I've been doing this for over 20 years with financial designation candidates. If you give people a whole lot of mock exams, half of them or so, they just study the mock exams. That's not going to get you to the comprehension level you need to pass this test. This is not like the 7. I'm not going to say the 7's easy. I'm not even sure if I'll call it intermediate. It's somewhere in between. This is much more challenging. You're going to need to understand and think through a little bit of a maze that they give you on some of these questions. They really want to see if you understand it. So just memorizing or studying practice questions the whole time, not going to get it done on this exam. So just wanted to give you a heads up there. We do give you 30 to 60, 90-day test prep schedules. Most of our candidates report, so I assume it's true, that they start with one of those, but once they get the hang of it, they get a couple sections in, they're like, okay, I got it. I really don't need I'm on the 60-day plan, Jim, and I'm studying these 3 hours today or whatever, and I'm studying these sections. It's there for you if you want it. But most, once they get into it and they kind of get the hang of it, they kind of just create their own schedule. All right, I'm going to let you stare at exam information and see if we have any questions.
It looks like we did have one come in. So this is a question about which certification is right. This individual is considering CPWA or SEMA. They have a 6, a 63, and a variable, and primarily sells life and annuities, owns a property and casualty insurance agency. Clients are middle to upper middle class individuals. The network includes high net worth physician clients with investable assets typically under 10 million. Given that, which of those certifications do you think would be a
that's a
good
great
fit?
question. So thank you for that. Let me give you the short answer. And then if you need the long answer, let's just talk by phone, maybe in the next couple of days. I think the first thing is, where do you make the most money? You're selling the insurance. I'm sure permanent insurance is part of that, annuities, that kind of thing. Are you doing more comprehensive type of planning? Are you doing some retirement planning? Are you doing asset protection? Are you talking about the estate other than just how insurance fits into that? If it's more broad-based, then CPWA could be the way to go. If investment knowledge is going to get you where you want to go faster, then do SEMA first. I think they're both great. But it really can come down to which one is better for you right now, or which one would you do first. I'd go through the content list of both and just keep asking myself, which one's going to get me where I want to go faster? And then whichever one that is, I would just base it off the content and I would go for that one. But again, if you need to walk me through some more particulars, happy to do that by by phone. But thank you for the question. I think that was our first question. So keep those questions coming in.
Yep, we actually have another one. So this is about the certification exam. Is it broken up into parts? Are there breaks, or it's just 4 hours and you got to just grind it out till you're done?
Excellent question. So as you can see here, it's 125 scored items. There'll be 10 beta unscored items. 4 hours. Yeah, you get as many breaks as you want, but the clock doesn't stop. So, when you take a break, the clock keeps going. So you're going to want to make it short. And so, some of our candidates pass. Well, most of them pass on the first attempt, but some of them get through the test in 2.5, 3 hours. Shorter than that is fairly uncommon. The ones that are probably on the bubble, certainly the ones that failed, most likely took the whole 4 hours. So, look, it's not like most of you are going to finish with a ton of time. You'll see in our guidance, we want you to finish with hopefully 20 to 30 minutes left. That way you've marked some questions that I told you to mark, some criteria for that, like record and review, as in the review part is you've tagged it. You're going to go back and look at it one more time before you make your final selection, that kind of thing. That being said, they are not grouped. They're scrambled. They're not grouped by section. So, you may get something on tax right out of the gate, and the very next question is an ethics question. You don't have to pass every one of those 11 sections on your cert exam. The questions come right off that sheet I told you about, that PDF that I want you to shoot me an email, and I'll get it to you. You can get it on our website or IWI's as well. So they are allocated very strictly, but they're not going to be in order, and you don't have to pass every section to pass this exam. They use something called modified Angoff, getting a little ahead here, but I think this will help. Right now, it looks like the cut pass score is about 77% correct. Like you got to get 77. So there's that 96 questions out of 125, something like that. That's how many questions you've got to get to pass this exam. You won't be told what your score is if you pass, and thankfully most of our candidates don't get to see their score because they pass. If you fail, they will tell you how you did in each of the 11 sections, or at least the major domains, and you can add it up and see how close you got. And we have not seen somebody come in like with a 77 and a fail in years. So I think it's sitting right around 77 right now, as in you got to get 77% of the questions right to pass. So what do we do in all your practice sets? You got to get 80% or better. And we make our questions harder for the most part than you're going to see on the cert exam. And you'll see that in our discussion board for those who come back and say, this is what I saw on the test. There are some things they can't talk about and that kind of, so we do have to monitor that part of the discussion board. But anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight on the exam.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, powering ahead here. So we'll finish up on the exam. I don't know why she's so happy. I guess she just took it. And now she probably took it in her office there online through ProctorU. Pearson VUE is who they use for in-person. So all I have to say, you can take it online yourself. There will be a proctor that has to come in, take control of your computer. So you wouldn't want to do it at an office. I don't even imagine your office would allow somebody to come in up through the internet or through the net and take control of your computer. But we do have candidates that do that. I prefer you to do it in person. Pass rates are higher, and there's some reasons for that you'll see in our program and in our test guidance. But you can do it either way. Calculators, you will need a financial calculator. They do not allow scientific calculators on this exam. Here is right out of the CPWA candidate handbook. I think it's page 9 or 10 of the handbook.
Yeah,
and
Jim,
you can see the
calculators. The slide skipped ahead again. Can you just back up to the calculator slide? Yeah,
well, we don't want that. All right, tell me when it lands on. I'm seeing calculator policy, but let me know when you do.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. So there's like 12 or 14 with variations and that kind of thing. Those two I have highlighted are the most commonly used calculators of our candidates. Doesn't mean you have to use it. I use the old HP12C, but if you don't have one of those, the learning curve is really nasty, so I wouldn't recommend that. Here's the good news is I don't think more than 5 or 6 questions on your entire exam, that's based on the last year of feedback from candidates. I don't think you're going to use it for some kind of time value of money calculation any more than 4 to 6 times. You're going to use it for other things. You're doing a tax calculation or whatever, but any old calculator would do for that. You're just going to be using your financial calculator. But for time value of money purposes, yeah, 4, 5, 6, maybe max. It's what you're going to see on your exam probably. That being said, tvmcalcs.com is great if you don't have a financial calculator or you're trying to figure out which one to use, or it's just been a long time and you need to brush up. Great website by a professor out in Colorado. It's free. He's got really just about all the major financial calculators on his website. He even has you're studying for the CFA or the CPWA, which calculator should you use? And then you just pick your calculator and he walks through about 12 to 15 calculations on each one of them. Here's the button you need to press. This is the order, if the order is important, all that. So spend an hour or so on his website, his free website, before you get into the program. That will help you so you're not stumbling around with your calculator when you get into the heavier content. I think that would serve you well, no matter what program you might go into. All right, where's my help? Very important. So this is all meant to be self-study. It's asynchronous, so since you don't have that structure, people can kind of get a little bit loose there. So you need to understand where your help is. You do have help, but it is limited. It's not priced or built as a for academic part of a degree program course at Yale. So there are going to be some limitations. Now, since I was the original architect of the certification at IWI, then IMCA, 17 or whatever years ago, I kind of have an idea already where people are going to get tripped up either academically or in practice or in preparing for their exam. So I kind of get ahead of some of those things with a little extra notes, a little extra study help, extra practice problems, little short video vignettes, that kind of thing. So that's going to help you. But the discussion board is great. If you're like stuck on something, that's the very first place I would go to, is go to that section, do like a Control F. That's the easiest way to do it. Control F search on your keyboard in that document, in that discussion thread, and see if anybody else had that issue. Chances are they did. And if it was a good discussion, I'm going to leave it in there. So you'll see some, not that many, but you'll see some from like 6 years ago, because it's like, that was a really good discussion. And that's a really common thing for students to ask. So I left it. So you're going to treat the discussion board also as an FAQ, kind of when you get stuck. If you've ever got questions on administration, how much time do I have left? Kelly, Jim, Kevin, I forgot my login information, whatever. That's no problem. That's 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Either the Yale or the Dobbs teams can help you with that. If you have technical issues, like my videos worked yesterday, but they're not working today, it's probably because you're on a new computer or a new connection, or you're behind a firewall or something like that. So Canvas is there for you there in that regard. And they have basically 24/7 help. So that's your help there. Now, if you have the content questions, again, discussion board's probably your first place to go. Study groups do form. I see that. There's a way you can do that in our discussion board, because we don't put your information out there. You have to volunteer it if you want to get in touch with other people, but you can do that through the discussion board. But ask something called Ask the Expert, if you will. We call those lifelines. And in the early days in this program and in our SEMA program, we beta tested. And we see that you don't really need any more than about 12 questions. If you do, then you end up using us as a crutch, and that's not going to help you on the test when you're really having to bear down and think through, a challenging cognitive question. So 12 is your limit on specific content questions. Another bit of good news, less than 5% of all of our candidates or participants use even 12 questions. So yeah, the number's right. I probably could have even squeezed it down. That all being said, if you're a type of individual and you're like, yeah, but Jim, it's 11 sections, 500 topics, I may need to ask multiple questions in every section. That's just what I need. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just we're not the program for you. I don't know if there is even another program that gives you more interaction in this regard, but you would want to reach out and see if that was more to your preferences in that regard. Now, again, 95+% of our candidates don't need that. But if you think you're in that boat, you want to reach out to other programs and see who's got what and what's available to you in that regard. Now, look, if you ever have questions on, I think I've got the right study plan, here's what it is, here's the timing of it, and when I think I'm going to, that's unlimited. We want you to have a good study plan and to be confident in it. The content's challenging enough. I don't need you worried about, are you studying the right things and are you doing the right order of study once you get to test prep? So anytime you got questions on that, you reach out to us so we can make sure your plan is strong and that your plan is good. So hopefully that helps you with where's my help. Great program instructors. I'll let you look through the full bios. There are about 8 of us, I think, right now, maybe 9. On this particular program. Kits, this is awesome. As I mentioned, Toby's outstanding. Toby and I have been doing stuff together for like probably 20 years now. John Nersessian's outstanding, teacher practitioner. Richard Joyner really is the father, in my mind, of CPWA, starting this as a certificate some 20 years ago or something. He does most of the tax work. He's outstanding. He works with a very large family office in Texas. We take the feedback seriously. We survey you after you've taken the CERT exam for your first attempt. Again, most of ours just need 1 attempt. But pass or fail, we want to know all the things we need to know right there, a couple of days after you test. And we're not perfect, as you can see, but we take the quantitative and the qualitative feedback very seriously. Now, this is like the 7th year or something for us with CPWA at Yale. So, there's not much of a learning curve left. We've been through that with, hundreds and actually low 1,000 students now. So I kind of think we're pretty solid. But that being said, we're working really, really hard, especially on the test prep, to make sure that you're getting what you need. And if you just put in the time and follow the plan, you should be fine. But again, we are not perfect. All right, so when you're ready to apply for candidacy, you'll actually do it on IWI's website. Remember, they are the certifying body. You can get there through our website. There'll be a register for CPWA, but that's just going to take you to IWI's website where you're going to register. Well, you're actually going to apply, even though it says register, through their website. So either way, you can get there. And then there's our contact information. And yeah, we do have a few minutes for questions if you have them.
Yep, we've got just about 1 minute left. If anyone has any last minute questions, they'd like
Yep,
to
go for it.
there.
I hope this has been helpful. This is long for an info session, but again, because you're probably going to spend 150 hours or something doing this, really want you to feel solid about your decision to jump in on a certification of this magnitude before you do it. So that's why these are a little bit longer than the typical 20 or 30-minute info sessions.
It doesn't look like we have any questions coming in, so I think we can go ahead and just wrap this up. So yeah, so thank you so much, Jim, and thanks to everyone who joined us this afternoon. As Jim mentioned, for more information, you can visit our website, or our contact information is right here on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to either of us with any additional questions. And we will, in the coming days, we will share the recording of this webinar, including the slides, so you'll have copies of that. And yeah, while we hope to see you in our program, as Jim mentioned a few times during this seminar or webinar, it's really important to kind of do your homework and find a program that's the right fit for you, but certainly we hope it's us. So yeah, thanks again for sharing your time with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.